Republicans in Congress are willing to give Putin the greatest gift he could hope for.
Despite pleas from President Biden, billions in U.S. aid for Ukraine remain stalled in Congress, leaving the White House unable to promise Ukraine any additional funding.
We've got a few more weeks here, and then we're out of Schlitz when it comes to helping Ukraine with this kind of security assistance.
The political gridlock in Washington comes as Ukraine faces another winter at war, and as NATO warns of Russia's destabilizing actions beyond Ukraine.
We have experienced a hybrid operation by Russia at our border.
That operation is what NATO and Finland say is behind the surge in migrants at its border with Russia. In response, Finland recently temporarily closed its 1,300-kilometer eastern border. I spoke with Finland's foreign minister, Elina Valtonen. Minister, thank you so much for making the time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
I want to start by asking you about that decision to close the border between Finland and Russia. Your prime minister called the situation a hybrid attack from Russia. Maybe you could just start by describing what was happening.
Well, we noticed a few weeks ago that Russia effectively is not respecting our border agreements anymore, to the extent that they have let people pass their border towards the Finnish border without valid documents. So we took a gradual approach by which we first prohibited Russia from allowing people to cross the border with a bicycle, because we had also observed them not only letting people pass with a bicycle, but also they had given people bicycles in order to be better able to cross the border. They didn't respect that. The second step was that we closed the 4 southernmost border crossings, and still Russia continued with this operation further north. And then finally, when we had first tried to just let one border crossing open and it didn't stop, we had to close the entire eastern border for 2 weeks. And now that this was taking approximately a week ago.
And what kind of numbers of people were trying to cross? Like, how different was it than what made it seem unusual to you, I guess?
Well, typically, Russia doesn't let anybody cross their border without their knowledge, and especially not without travel documents. They have been very, very, I would say, constantly looking that they also adhere to not just the international rules or the border agreements they have with us, but also that they are in the full knowledge of which people are allowed to exit Russia. So we observed this behavior to change when they started letting people pass, and now we are talking a number of approximately 1,000 people. And even though the number might not sound alarmingly large, we do think that it is not only in principle, but also in practice, a threat to our national security, because we can't have an outside power choose for us which people are let to enter our country. And of course, we wouldn't have any evidence of how large numbers could get if we didn't act decisively.
But what do you think they were trying to do? Like, what was the goal of trying to send people over the border into Finland?
Russia makes, unfortunately, use of a very diverse set of hybrid actions, not just against Finland, but also many other Western societies. They are engaged in cyber attacks. They are engaged in disinformation campaigns. They are engaged in hybrid operations like these, where they instrumentalize people. We have had a similar experience at our eastern border back in 2015, 2016, where a few thousand people were, in a similar fashion, let enter Finland by Russia. So we just have to realize that since this is a hybrid operation, it is not only targeted against Finland, but it's also targeted against the European Union and NATO, since the Finnish eastern border is also the external border of both EU and NATO.
Yeah, so you share this border with Russia, and now you are a member of NATO, and you see this kind of action. How concerning was that for you and for Finland to feel as though perhaps you are starting to be targeted by Russia, perhaps in a different way?
Of course, this is very, very alarming, and we have tried to call on Russia to go back to adhering the agreements and the normal border procedures. But well, in Finland, we are hardly surprised. We have always taken the threat that Russia might potentially pose also against us very seriously. We have always invested strongly into our own defense forces. And of course, well, we have been members of the European Union, and we have been closely cooperating with NATO over the course of the years and decades, just like Sweden. And now that Russia started the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Finnish people thought that the time had come to send in the membership application.
Can I ask you what you think about, you mentioned Sweden there still has not joined NATO yet. I know that there are steps ongoing. Turkey's president, for instance, has said it wants to see evidence from the US Congress about those CF-18s. Do you think we will see Sweden make it into the alliance before the end of the year or at the beginning of next year?
We strongly hope that Sweden will make it in by the end of the year. It is not only in Sweden's interest, it is not only in Finland's interest and the entire Europe's interest, but obviously in the interest of the entire alliance. All the capabilities that Sweden brings in, their knowledge and their defense capabilities, it's very important for all of us.
I know that there was recently a NATO foreign ministers meeting in Brussels, and this is happening obviously at a time when funding for Ukraine in the United States is stalling in Congress, and that is of grave concern certainly to the president there, but I think to other allies as well. Did that come up at the meeting? How concerned are you that the funding might not get to Ukraine as it is needed?
It is very concerning because we have to realize that the defense assistance and the defense materials we are sending to Ukraine, it's not charity. It's for the Ukrainian people, of course, and obviously to defend their own country. But at the same time, they are defending our values, the European way of life, well, the Western values certainly, and of course the UN Charter, because based on the UN Charter, all countries do have the right to sovereignty and territorial integrity. So if we do not assist Ukraine, then we might ask, what is Russia's next target? What do they want to reach next? And second, then of course, there's no relying anymore on the UN Charter and on these basic principles.
And does the sign that this aid is not for now is stalled, and it may be about domestic politics certainly, but does it symbolize anything greater to you in terms of fatigue with the war in Ukraine, or concerns that this has dragged on for so long, or waning support by allies?
I guess us politicians, if that were the case, then we have failed to communicate to people that the threat from Russia is indeed existential and it's long-term. And it's now only manifested in Ukraine, unfortunately, and the Ukrainian people are taking the strongest hit and are paying the highest price in this. So we should be assisting Ukraine as much as possible and as long as it's needed. But at the same time, I have to say that us in Europe, we have to see this even stronger than the United States or Canada, for that matter, because this is happening just at our front door. So we have to even stronger than before, and I would say significantly stronger than before, invest into our own defense capabilities and build up our defense industry. And that is for the long term, and not only in order to be able to better assist Ukraine, but for our strategic interest, for our long-term strategic interest as well.
Minister Valtonen, thank you so much for making the time for Canada. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.